Well, welcome everyone to FinTech Hustle. I'm your host, Sam Kilmer with Cornerstone Advisors, where I lead FinTech advisory. And man, I'm glad to be with you here today. We're all getting ginned up and ready for the Association for Financial Technology, AFT conference in Vancouver, Canada. And while I'm sitting here packing up my AFT socks and getting ready, I thought I would have on a few industry insider guests who happen to also be joining me at the AFT conference, which I'll be telling you about them in just a moment. Just real quickly, for my folks at AFT, I just want to shout out, hey, listen, we're doing this during a break. We're going to be live showing this during it. That's my dog back there. Sorry about that. We're going to be showing this live at the AFT, but during a break, so I promise I'm not interrupting any sessions. But let me interrupt the interruption to tell you a little bit about our guests today. We have Cheryl Kardos from Numerated, and Numerated is a lending solutions provider. I think, Cheryl, you guys started out in kind of small business and commercial origination, have expanded from there. So I've gotten to know Cheryl and Dan O'Malley and the whole team there over the years. And so welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you. Super excited to be here. Well, humbled, also not sure what I signed up for. So I'm excited. When they say it's unscripted, they mean that. Like there's not prep. Yeah.
I don't even know what I'm going to ask. So it's not unscripted. So you did sign up for, but it's going to be fun. We'll be gentle, we promise. Also, Tom Shen, serial entrepreneur, board member extraordinaire. Let's see, Tom, you founded SDI, you founded Malauzai. You're on probably a half dozen boards, chairman of one or two. Wow, we're really happy to have you, and I've always loved your energy level and passion. So thanks for joining us on the hustle.
Well, thanks, Sam. Just absolutely delighted and humbled to be here as well, and great to be on a panel with Cheryl and Matt. I feel like my FinTech career is now complete.
Well, maybe it is. What is that behind you? Are you like in Bali or something back there? What are you doing?
It's actually Bora Bora. Okay.
Very good. Well, you can tell I don't have my islands down yet, so I need to work on that. But thanks for joining us. And also we have Matt Dean, who I've known for years. My dogs back here seem to like Matt quite a bit too. Matt, actually, you and I met. We sat down for barbecue over here when you were leading Trabian, which you're still doing, as I understand it. And you've more recently, due to I think it was a deal last year, have joined the MVB organization as they're leading up their ventures and doing a lot of other fun things there too, huh?
Yeah, that's right. So a little over a year ago, had my first experience with a boss in 20 years after founding Trabian out of college. So we're now part of the MVB organization. MVB is a bank doing some very interesting work as a sponsor bank for banking as a service. We're an acquirer, we're an issuer. We do a lot of work with FinTech, and so very happy to be part of that organization now. I'm actually calling in from the Cornerstone office here in sunny Scottsdale. So glad to be here. Really looking forward to Vancouver and seeing my friends at AFT as well.
Yeah, and I noticed you've got a plant back there in the corner. I understand that's Al's office. Is this a new cannabis banking project that we've got going on at Cornerstone, or what are we doing back there?
Well, I'll experiment after the call, and we'll see what we have here.
Very nice. Very nice. We're keeping it fast and loose. Very good. Very good. Well, let's jump in, guys. I mean, like I told you guys before when I invited you on, we don't really come onto this with a list of predetermined topics or anything. We just want to get perspectives of what you personally and professionally, but mainly personally, what are you seeing out there? What's working and not working in FinTech? And I guess, Tom, you know what? You've never been shy. Why don't we start with you? What are you seeing out there? What are the big topics, or what's going on out there that you're hearing from the entrepreneurs and the bankers out there in FinTech land?
Well, Sam, I'm never afraid to be controversial, so let me jump in. This may not be what you're asking for, so here it is. One of the things I get involved a lot in is fundraising. And so a great topic for FinTech entrepreneurs is thinking about with the recession possibly around the corner, investors are writing fewer checks and sometimes smaller checks. Okay. What about rotation in the fintech space? It's still the number one investable field, right? So what's working, what's not working? Very, very interesting. What we're seeing is the continued bifurcation of fundraising. So a continued flight to quality. The good companies, the ones that are growing 80, 150, 300%, they're still getting incredibly frothy valuation in the mid 20x type of valuation. But on the other end, the company that's sort of doing well, but sort of middle of the road or not as well, they're seeing lower valuation or at times being shut out of fundraising. So bifurcation of the fundraising space, and that's a good thing, and that's a challenge as well.
Here, I went off mute there because my dog Mabel back there was being a little bit more vocal than I would have preferred for that. Didn't want to interrupt that. That's a really good point. Tom, I think as one investor at Finovate put it last week, it's like there's still interest in the space. It's just the cost of capital has gone up and people are scrutinizing it. You know, the underwriting is just getting a little bit more particular. So really interesting point. And follow the money, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, as I said, flight to quality, rotation, right? We're seeing some rotation, actually, interestingly, from sort of the more sexy to the less sexy, to more meat and potato, if you will. So that's my observation. I'd love to hear what you are seeing out there.
Yeah, I mean, Cheryl, thinking about what Numerated does, I mean, it's hard to get more meat and potatoes than commercial and business lending in the banking space. It seems like you guys have had a pretty good run, and I don't know what you're seeing out there, but it seems like lending tech is still, I mean, everybody needs loans right now. There's still, the loan to deposit ratios are easing back up, but they're not really as high as they once were. And what are you guys seeing out there in lending tech, and what's hot and what's not?
Yeah, it's interesting the way you put it as meat and potatoes, because there's so much of the meat and potatoes part of lending where there's still a tremendous amount of efficiency and convenience, right? And really automation that can be layered into the traditional process, right? And then you're seeing things like what Matt talked about earlier, focused on BaaS, right? And banking as a service and things like that. That's also happening in lending, right? Where a lot of these transactions are moving from the branch, right, to the point of sale. And there's really interesting things happening, right, in that space as well. And then you have the next wave, which Tom's probably more focused on than we are here at Numerated, which is Web3, right? And how that opens up a tremendous amount of other types of lending and fundraising, not just on crypto side, right, but what blockchain can do with a decentralized ledger. So I think there's a tremendous amount happening in lending. And I think what's really exciting right now is that while there's a lot of fragmentation in the space, you're starting to see, and obviously I'm biased because I'm in a partnership role, but you're starting to see companies come together and start to put together really big visions, right? They're not just integrating, and Matt, you probably have, way more perspective here than I did with your company, but people aren't just integrating for the sake of integrating, right? They're integrating for really big market opportunities. And I think that is really fascinating in terms of what's happening in lending right now. So the meat and potatoes, there's plenty still there. There's so much efficiency to still be gained both in small business, for the back office, for the banker, for the business owner, right? But there's a tremendous amount of other innovation, near term being banking as a service, right? And then even after that, there's way more coming. So I think the meat and potatoes is a really good way to talk about it, but you can't forget of all these buzzwords, right? And a lot of the creative destruction that's happening even further down the road that we know is going to come to this industry in a major way too.
Oh, by the way, I'm instituting right at this minute. I'm going to go ahead and put on my bullshit hat. We're gonna do a no buzzwords session here.
Oh my gosh.
So I love what you said, though, Cheryl. You can't forget the buzzwords. We're going to do our best. Oh, you got yours, too. He's got his monkey hat on. What I was hoping for. That was not planned. That was not planned.
Yeah.
So good stuff. And one of the things I like, Cheryl, looking back at Numerated is, it sort of started Dan and the team or whatever, in a bank. It seemed like it was hatched. Many of the ideas were hatched from banking. And I know, Matt, thinking about what you're doing, so you've kind of come from the tech space and you're now coming into a bank. So it's kind of the other, it's like sort of hatch bank out of tech hatching into bank. And so what are you seeing? I mean, really interesting role that you're in, kind of injected inside of a banking organization at Adventures now coming out of tech. What are you seeing out there?
Well, I mean, speaking to less sexy and meat and potatoes, one of the reasons why the deal made a lot of sense for me was that, MVB is working at the intersection of banks and fintechs, and we've worked a lot with banks. We've worked a lot with fintechs. What we saw quite often was that technology was not necessarily the limiting factor. It was the integration of compliance and risk and the ability to actually compose the operations of the various organizations. We would have an issue where we were very concerned about, okay, we could get the tech done in time. You'd get the tech done fairly quickly, and then it's months before you have sign off from risk or compliance to actually launch the program or put forward that innovation. So one of the projects that we started out working on very early at the bank, actually prior to even becoming to joining together, was integrated risk management. It was, building the tools to support both initial onboarding of fintech partners, continual oversight, and to automate that in ways that allowed us to move forward in a trustworthy way. So I see we just lost Cheryl there. Hopefully we can get her back soon.
She may join back in here in a second. Sometimes that'll happen with a connection, internet connection will get lost. We'll just keep rolling and she'll come back in. That's great. I want to pick up on actually a couple of her observations, if that's okay with you guys. And let's talk about it. And we'll talk about her in absentia. How about that? We'll just
there you go.
All right. A couple of things that Cheryl brought up that I thought were interesting was she pointed to efficiency. One thing that I'm seeing come up a lot is, while efficiency's been timeless. I mean, when I first got into banking, we were talking about, one of the more shit, better shit, faster shit. You constantly be more efficient. But what I think's interesting is the conversation seems to have changed from efficiency to cut costs in a process more to efficiency to make a process go faster. Like it's more about efficiency to make a loan decision happen faster, to get a loan booked faster, or to make a payment go through faster. It just seems like that's been would you guys agree with that or take issue with that?
Absolutely, Sam. So let me jump in. It's going to sound like a commercial because I got a few companies, I'm trying to monetize. One of the boards I sit on is a small company, early stage, called Shastic. And we're in the RPA space, robotic process automation. We call it intelligent process automation, sort of the next iteration of RPA. And what we've been able to do with one of our credit union customers is to take a process that takes 3 days to originate a loan and to fund a loan, 3 days. And we're able to automate it such that we can do it in 3 hours. So Shastic can produce that kind of magic, reaching out to customers. If there's a document missing, it would automate that process. You don't need a knowledge worker to reach out to Sam to get a copy of his driver's license.
Right.
It's automated right from the desktop. And then when documents are ready, it automatically goes out to you. You e-sign it. It loads up onto the system without ever a knowledge worker touching it. So moving from 3 days to 3 hours.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of and I've seen some other fundraisers and things around, the company Notarize. Of course, over the years, DocuSign has been white hot and some of the other technologies, right? So I absolutely see. It just seems like we got used to skipping past all this stuff on the iPhone. And meanwhile, the banking world seemed like things were kind of stuck in a, review this faxed, photocopied fax, and maybe we'll kind of sort of get back to you. But I remember my son came home from the bank a couple of years ago and he goes, "Dad, they said my credit card decision was pending." He's like, "What the heck does pending mean?"
Yeah.
And it's funny because I know what pending means, right? I'm an old crusty banker, but I realized right away, the word pending to most people now might as well mean no, get lost, right? It's an unacceptable thing. I see you're back, Cheryl. Welcome back. And Matt, what were you going to say about efficiency? That was a good comeback there from Tom, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Well, what I'm seeing and it may just be the role that I'm playing, but we spend a lot of time focusing on customer experience. What we're finding is that the team member, the employee experience, and bringing efficiencies, Tom, like you were talking about efficiencies of process and automating those things, like it's important to provide that level of tooling and capabilities to the team, particularly if you're looking to build an adaptable team, a team that's willing to go in a new direction. If they've had to spend months or years getting good at a particular system just to be effective with it because the system was hard to deal with, then it's really hard to get excited about doing something new. But if you've been focused from the beginning on taking care of them and making sure they're able to do knowledge work and not just, deal with cruft, then I think you build up the trust that you can do new things and harder things. And it also helps, I think, with talent acquisition. So I love the idea of efficiency across both, the consumer and the team members and reducing friction throughout.
Yeah. And Cheryl, we were just talking about one of your points, actually, which was you were talking about efficiency. We were just talking about how it seems like many of the conversations have shifted from efficiency for cost, cost cutting, taking heads out or anything like that, more to just efficiency of process, being able to make a loan decision faster, being able to fund the loan faster. Mm-hmm. That's the loan side. Of course, you can just take the same thing over to treasury or payments or, pick a discipline. Any thoughts on that? I know we lost you there for an internet connection. Happens all the time. Anything you'd add to that?
No, I think it's spot on. I think the other thing I'd say is I think often a lot of this software in the lending space really has only focused on that back office, right? And so obviously it's different for consumer lending than it is for commercial, right? But I think what you're also seeing is, I don't know if you guys talked about this at all either, but the segment of the bank, it's probably a little different as well, right? If we're talking about consumer, where there's been so much innovation already and so much focus already, both at the big banks ushering that in and then the communities and regionals trying to keep up, right? Small business is on a different and commercial, right, is on a sort of a different trend, right? And I think you're still seeing conversations where, we're still getting RFPs that don't have anything in them about, how are you making this easier for a borrower, right? And that's a little concerning on the other side of it, Rel. So I don't disagree, but I'd layer that in. I think it's different by segment. And I don't think we are over making things easier for the end consumer, maybe the consumer, but, I don't think so for the business owner. I think there's so much more that we can do for them.
Well, and I would hate for people to think that just because SoFi stock or Upstart stock or whatever, Lending Club, pick your fintech poison, their stock might be getting hammered right now. As Tom said, it's been kind of a bear market on the fundraising side and also on, some of the public stocks. But I think we can all agree here that the ship has sailed on. We just have to be getting better at the point of sale. And I sometimes call it the point of influence, which is what happens before the sale. Like, how do you get them interested in buying something in the first place? And it does seem to me like, I don't know, get your sense on this, whether it's looking at acquisitions that have happened out there like Simple Nexus or Terrafina or whatever, just huge focus on the buy and the sort of the shopping and buy cycle of financial services, whether it's embedded or it's, coming directly from the bank. It seems like all those companies are still every bit as hot, even if their valuations might be a little suppressed right now. Still seems pretty hot to me. I don't know, Tom. You have any thoughts on that? Are you seeing it still be a lot of interest in the point of sale and just sort of the digital front end companies and their stocks? I know you have a lot of experience in that world from Malauzai.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. Sort of the old adage, right? Meet the customer where they're at, right? Versus say, come on into my branch. Right? Remember the old SDI days of building branch automation, right? But in those days, that's where customers were going, right? That's where the coffee and donuts were, right? But today, they want to do banking at Starbucks with their iPhone. And so you need to meet the customer where they are. This notion of banking everywhere, banking anywhere, right? Even this notion of I'm going to do banking is going away. right? The idea is I need to pay for something. I need to get paid for something, right? That type of thinking, and more, sort of the next generation is moving in that direction. So this whole idea of FI, fintechs, sort of at one time I went to a show at a conference, and there was this fellow talked about, well, is it FI or is it fintech? Friend or foe? So all that is blurring, right? And so one of the things actually, to go down a tangent, is I talk a lot to my friends in the business, the boards I sit on, about being partnership ready. Great example, and I was reminded of that talking with Matt here, my good friend, is that Trabian is now partnered with MVB, right? We saw our friend Mark Nelson of Horicon acquiring Christian Ruby's company, Monada, right? I now, for the first time, is sitting on the board of a bank, right? So this idea of partnership ready, right, is that FIs need to sync up with fintechs and move at the speed of fintechs, where fintechs, on the other hand, and Matt just touched on this as well, need to embrace security, risk, compliance that are requirements of the FI. So to be partnership ready, both ends.
I love the partnership ready theme, and I know, Cheryl, your partnerships is part of what you're spending your time doing all the time, and AFT obviously is a perfect place to do some of that work. I was also just thinking about, Matt, that the being deal ready and partner ready oftentimes comes down to the industry niches that you choose to be in. And I know MBB, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but there's been some specific niches. You mentioned fintech, but even within that, it's been like gaming and just different sort of things. And there's a lot of compliance requirements that are kind of unique to that space. So it's not just banking compliance, right? Right. You're talking about some pretty forward. You guys are probably almost help invent the rules as much as you are adhering to. I have to believe that you're sort of right out there on the frontier of helping maybe even the regulators get their brains around what some of this ought to work like. Am I overthinking that, or is that kind of close to where you guys are at?
Oh, I don't think any of us are overthinking. It's something you have to spend a lot of time working on and thinking about, and understanding the difference between inherent and residual risk. There's things that may seem like they are riskier, but there are controls that you put in place that can get you and your regulators comfortable with the activities that you're performing. And so, what that requires is the ability to adapt and understand. Not only, it's easy to say, like, we're just never going to do this type of activity. Like, we're never going to work with a gaming or crypto or, various groups that we do work with. It's different to go and understand, okay, what are they actually doing? What are the actual activities that they are performing? How are they planning to use what we're doing, as a bank to support those activities? And the mental flip that switched for me was, was going from gatekeeper, which is what it always felt like banks were, or maybe the regulators, but banks as proxies of the regulators, to charter protectors. And when you think of the idea of, partnerships in the micro, like if you like decentralized finance, if partnerships were just code based, so you all spread out in these individual nodes, like there has to be trust. There has to be somebody who's responsible for saying this thing is true. Mm-hmm. And, banks are spending, that's what they have permission from the government to do, is say, this is true. We have looked at this. We can prove that this thing is true, whether it's, this person's identity, they are who they say they are, or, whether this partner has, validated that they are handling compliance needs. And so, really going from the one mindset to the other, and then realizing what it takes to protect the charter, but that you can get comfortable with risk if you understand what is actually happening and making sure that you have the controls. And then those controls are not set it and forget it types of things. Those are things you have to have active monitoring
Yeah,
to maintain.
That's set it and forget it. I think I've heard that 3 times over the last 2 weeks. Of we just we can't do that all the time. We've got to keep pushing it. And and by the way, I love what MVB is doing with acquisitions. It reminds me a lot of when I saw City National Bank many years ago when they were acquiring the entertainment space, and they acquired residual and royalty tech firms. And it's like they looked at their strategy and their market niche and their community market niche of entertainers. You're like, of course. It's like the acquisitions that MVB has made, including Trabian. I was looking at them, I'm like, of course they did that. Like, it's almost like it just fits, and you don't even have to ask in your mind what it is. But Cheryl, any thoughts on the whole risk space or anything else you'd like to add? I know given our time frame, we probably need to get wrapped up here, but I just thought I'd see any closing thoughts from you, Cheryl.
I would love to pull on a thread that Tom mentioned, but it's a different angle, which is, VC valuations are down, right? There's a bunch of technology talent out there, and banks are saying, man, it's really hard for us to get talents. Man, we can't prioritize these projects because we don't have the right talent internally. And I'm wondering, I've seen Amex do some PR over the last week-ish, right, around this. I'm just wondering if you're seeing anything else, because this seems like a moment for the banking industry to maybe look in some diverse pools to pull some talent into this industry. And I'd love to get everyone's perspective on that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start. I was just in Austin. I've got just in Austin for a conference. I've got my good Welly shirt here. And I was talking with a head of digital for a $1 billion bank, and they have 2 people working in the digital area right now, and they're going to be at 12 by the end of the year. That gives you an idea of what their talent ramp up is. I know Tom and Matt, what are you hearing?
Yeah, no, Cheryl, you're absolutely spot on. I'll pick on Axiom Bank again. So Axiom Bank is moving forward towards tech forward. Banking as a service, offering banking as a service. And we have pulled close to a dozen people from one of the largest, I won't name, but one of the largest financial services companies in the world in the Orlando area.
Right, that narrows it down. Matt, anything on talent?
I mean, we're looking for talent all the time, in our role. And, I am optimistic that, some of the softening in some of the fintechs that were just throwing crazy money around is going to help us. The numbers got so high that even if they're going flat or going down, it's still going to be really hard for a lot of financial institutions to pull the trigger on some of those salaries. But I am optimistic that we're going to see the benefits of that. And, it goes back to what Tom was saying before, that, there's this bifurcation. It's the companies that have revenue in mind and have an actual expectation of running a good business versus those that, it was a land grab. And so you throw crazy money at teams and it becomes a vanity metric, the number of team members. So as we have some sanity return, I hope that trickles down, or not maybe down, but trickles across to the financial institution's ability to build that capacity, because I do think it's important. I think it's important to have that level of control and influence over your destiny by having the development talent to support it.
So some key takeaways here. Go ahead, Tom.
No, I said, Matt, I think it's trickle up.
Trickle up. There you go. I like it.
A couple key takeaways for me. More talent, more confidence, which leads to more funding. I'm also hearing easy on the buzzwords, easy on the compliance, folks. We got to get, risk and compliance. That's something that continues to be important to us. And point of sale, efficiency never goes out of style, but we're focusing on efficient process. I will look forward to seeing Cheryl, you, Matt, and Tom, all of you in Vancouver at AFT. Safe travels to all of you. Thank you for joining us on the FinTech Hustle. I raise my coffee to all of you.